Ladies and gentlemen, how many times have you stopped yourself from doing something you loved just because you feared what they might think? How often have you sacrificed your truth just to be accepted? In this message, we're going to address the invisible prison so many people live in, the fear of judgment, and more importantly, how to break free. This isn't just about confidence, this is about reclaiming your soul. Take a breathe. Now another one, but this time let it go with the weight of everyone else's expectations. There comes a moment in every soul's journey where the question arises, not whispered but demanded. Whose life am I really living? Is it yours? Or is it the life shaped, molded, and restrained by the thoughts, beliefs, and judgments of others? From the day we arrive in this world, we are fed a silent diet of how we should be, what we should wear, how we should speak, what we should believe, how we should look, how successful we should become, and especially what version of ourselves will make others comfortable. But the soul, your soul, does not seek comfort in conformity. It seeks freedom in truth. And so this message is for those who are tired of the pretending, tired of editing themselves, tired of shrinking so someone else can feel taller, tired of carrying the invisible burden of what will they think. Today, we are going to let that burden go. Because once you realize that what other people think of you is none of your business, you open a doorway to a quieter mind, a fuller heart, and a life that finally feels like yours. This is not about rebellion. It's about returning to your truth, your power, and your peace. Let's begin. There's a deep, almost sacred longing inside each of us, a desire to feel accepted, to feel seen, to feel like we belong. From childhood, we're shaped by this silent yearning. We adapt, we adjust, we mold ourselves, and sometimes we even abandon parts of who we are, all in the name of fitting in. But let me ask you something gentle, and I want you to really feel into this question, not just hear it with your ears. What if you were never meant to fit in? Fitting in is not the same as belonging. Fitting in requires you to change. It asks you to compromise. It demands that you wear a mask to be part of the group. But true belonging only happens when you show up as you are, unfiltered and unafraid. But somewhere along the line, maybe someone told you it wasn't safe to be yourself. Maybe it was a teacher, a parent, a group of friends, or even society itself whispering that your real self was too much, too different, too weird, too sensitive, too bold, too quiet, too loud. And so you began the process of hiding. And yet so many people spend their lives tailoring their personality to match the room. They dilute their opinions, they dim their light, they second guess their laughter, their voice, even their dreams, all to avoid standing out, all to keep the peace, all to be liked. But in doing so, they create a version of themselves that is not whole, not true, not alive. We are not here to be replicas. We are not here to be copies of someone else's expectations. You were not designed to walk a path carved by others. You were meant to carve your own. You wore the mask. You learned to read the room before you spoke. You looked for approval before you acted. And you may have convinced yourself this is just what it means to be human, to constantly edit, constantly shrink, constantly apologize for simply being you. But deep down, it never sat right, did it? Because the soul knows when it's being silenced. It knows when its expression is being squeezed into a box that it was never meant to fit in. And so it stirs, it nudges, it creates discomfort. Not because something is wrong with you, but because something real inside you is begging to come alive again. You don't need to be what they expect. You don't need to be liked by everyone. And you certainly don't need to fit into a mold that was never made with you in mind. That mold was built by fear, by cultural programming, by generations of people who never questioned the path they were walking. But you are here now, awake enough to ask, what if I stopped trying to fit in? There is tremendous power in owning your difference, in honoring the parts of you that don't align with the world's template, the way you see life, the way you think, the way your heart works. That uniqueness is not a flaw. It's a compass. It's a signal that you are here to live, not replicate. And yes, standing in your truth might feel lonely at times. When you stop contorting yourself to meet other people's comfort zones, some may distance themselves. But in that space, something beautiful happens. You begin attracting people who don't need you to be anything other than what you are. You begin creating a life that feels like a home instead of a stage. The greatest tragedy isn't being misunderstood by others, it's misunderstanding yourself for the sake of being understood. How long will you trade your authenticity for approval? How long will you betray your soul for applause? You were not born to echo, you were born to express, and your expression is sacred. You are not a puzzle piece that has to fit somewhere. You are the whole picture, unfolding, evolving, and expanding into the highest version of yourself. No flower opens because it's trying to impress another. It blooms because blooming is its nature. That's you. You are not here to impress. You are here to express. You are not here to perform. You are here to embody. And you are not here to fit in. You are here to remember that your difference is divine. divine. There's a quiet but persistent fear that follows so many of us through life, the fear of what others think. It becomes a shadow shaping the way we speak, the choices we make, the way we walk through the world. We become watchers of ourselves, overly cautious, constantly monitoring how we are perceived. We ask questions like, will they approve? Will they judge me? Will they understand? But rarely do we pause to ask, why do I care? You were not born with this fear. You didn't arrive into the world worried about your worth or questioning your enoughness. You were pure, unfiltered awareness, laughing, crying, creating, exploring, expressing without inhibition. You were fully yourself. And then slowly the voices began. Not the ones inside, but the ones around you. The opinions, the criticisms, the unsolicited advice, the expectations, the labels. Maybe someone told you that you weren't smart enough, or strong enough, or attractive enough, or successful enough. Maybe someone laughed when you shared your dream, or rolled their eyes when you revealed your heart. And maybe you didn't think much of it at the time, but those moments plant seeds. And if no one teaches you otherwise, those seeds grow into beliefs. Beliefs that say you need to earn love. Beliefs that say you need to be someone else to be accepted. Beliefs that say your worth is dependent on how others see you. But opinions are just that, opinions. They are not facts, they are not truth. They are perspectives filtered through someone else's lens, shaped by their own fears, traumas, biases, and limitations. When someone tells you what you can or cannot be, they are not speaking about you. They are revealing themselves. They are showing you the boundaries of their own imagination. And if you're not careful, you begin to mistake their ceiling for your limit. We must remember, the opinion of others is not your reflection, it's their projection. And the sooner you understand that, the freer you become. Think about how many dreams have been abandoned, not because they were impossible, but because someone else called them unrealistic. How many lives have gone unlived because someone feared the criticism that might come with trying something bold, something unconventional, something true. The tragedy isn't the fear itself. The tragedy is mistaking someone's voice for your inner guidance. The tragedy is allowing someone's judgment to become your compass. There's a world of difference between guidance and interference. Someone who truly sees you, who loves you, who respects your soul, will not try to reshape you. They won't ask you to shrink or perform. They won't withhold love because you don't meet their expectations. Real love never demands you trade your authenticity for approval. Real love celebrates you, not because you are perfect, but because you are real. When you let the opinions of others rule you, you become a puppet to their moods, their beliefs, their ignorance. Your joy becomes conditional. Your peace becomes fragile, and your sense of self becomes fragmented. You start living not from your own truth, but from a curated, edited version of yourself that you hope will be acceptable. But here's something that changes everything. What someone thinks about you can never alter who you really are. Their opinion can't touch your spirit. It can't define your purpose. It can't diminish your light. Your essence exists far beyond the reach of anyone's judgment. You are not your reputation. You are not your likes, your followers, or your titles. You are not someone's misunderstanding of you. You are not a collection of labels handed down by people who never truly took the time to know you. You are something deeper, quieter, eternal. And the more you identify with that unchanging self, the less power other people's opinions hold over you. It is not your job to convince people of your worth. It is not your responsibility to be understood by everyone. Some people will never see you clearly because they are still viewing life through their own fog. That's not your burden to carry. Your only task is to live your truth with grace, to be at peace with yourself even if others are uncomfortable, to walk in alignment with your soul even when it takes you away from the crowd. There's a strange kind of freedom that arrives when you stop looking for permission, when you stop seeking validation, when you stop checking the mirror of someone else's eyes just to feel okay. That freedom doesn't come from defiance. It comes from remembrance. Remembering that you were never broken, that your worth isn't negotiable, that your truth doesn't need approval to exist. There is a weight we carry that cannot be seen. It doesn't show up on our shoulders or our backs, but it presses down on our thoughts, our emotions, and our ability to feel joy. It is the weight of holding on to the need to be liked, holding on to past criticism, holding on to the fear of judgment, and most of all, holding on to the illusion that we can control how others see us. But here's the truth, holding on keeps us stuck, while letting go sets us free. We live in a world that constantly tells us to do more, prove more, become more, often not for ourselves, but for others. It whispers that our value is dependent on how many people admire us, how well we're received, how safe we appear, how much applause we generate. And so we begin to carry layers. We carry the version of ourselves we think others want to see. We carry the regret of moments when we were misunderstood. We carry the regret of moments when we were misunderstood. We carry the pain of past rejection, the sting of someone's disapproval, the silent burden of not not being enough in someone else's eyes. Your soul was not meant to carry all that. Your soul is not here to bend under the weight of false expectations. It is here to rise, to breathe, to move lightly through this life, not burdened by the opinions of others, but guided by the truth within. Letting go is not about ignoring others. It's not about arrogance or indifference. Letting go is surrender. It is the sacred act of choosing peace over performance, truth over image, and freedom over fear. It's understanding that you do not need to manage, manipulate, or monitor every impression you leave behind. You are not responsible for someone else's reaction to your truth. You are only responsible for someone else's reaction to your truth. You are only responsible for living it. The opinions, reactions, and judgments of others are constantly shifting, driven by their own moods, experiences, biases, and wounds. What someone praises today, they may criticize tomorrow. What they admire in one moment, they may envy in the next. And if you spend your life adjusting your behavior to match the ever-changing winds of public approval, you will lose your center. You will become a mirror instead of a light, reflecting everyone, shining for no one, not even yourself. Letting go means recognizing that you are not here to live a role written by someone else. You are not the actor in their play. You are the author of your own story. And that means you are allowed to choose peace, even if someone else doesn't understand it. You are allowed to walk away, even if someone calls it selfish. You are allowed to evolve, even if others preferred the version of you that stayed quiet and small. The energy it takes to constantly manage how you're perceived is energy stolen from your joy. Think about that. Every moment spent worrying about how you'll be judged is a moment not spent living, laughing, creating, or connecting. That tension you feel in your chest when you try to please everyone, that's your soul telling you it's time to stop carrying what was never yours to hold. Letting go is not always dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a simple decision to stop explaining yourself. Sometimes it's walking into a room without wondering who approves of your presence. Sometimes it's saying no without guilt. Sometimes it's simply breathing in the moment and choosing not to rehearse someone else's opinion in your mind. There's a deep, unshakable peace that begins to unfold when you finally stop trying to win everyone's favor. Because when you let go, you create space for truth to rise, for clarity to speak, for self-respect to grow. You begin to hear your own voice again, the one that was drowned out by the noise of what everyone else thought you should be. Letting go also means forgiving, not just others, but yourself. Forgiving yourself for the years you tried so hard to be accepted, for the times you betrayed your own heart to gain someone else's approval, for the moments you chose silence when your truth was begging to be spoken. You did the best you could with what you knew, but now you know better, and knowing better is the first step toward living better. There is a sacred strength in surrender, a quiet revolution in deciding that you no longer need to be everything to everyone. You don't need to be the favorite. You don't need to be understood. You don't need to be approved of to be free. You just need to be willing to let go of the story that says your worth is found outside of you. Your worth was never out there. It was always within. It was always waiting for you to return to it. There is a voice within you that has always been there. It speaks not with volume, but with presence. It doesn't shout. It doesn't argue. It simply knows. It knows when something feels wrong, even if the world tells you it's right. It knows when you're pretending, even if you're applauded for it. It knows when you've abandoned your truth, even if no one else can tell. This is the voice of your soul, the quiet, unwavering presence beneath all the noise. But the world is loud, and the noise is constant. It's in the scrolling, the comparing, the endless commentary on who we should be and what we should strive for. It's in the headlines that provoke fear, in the voices that demand attention, in the expectations we've internalized without question. The noise doesn't just live outside of us. Eventually, it becomes internal. It becomes the self-doubt, the overthinking, the inner critic that echoes other people's voices, not our own. And in the middle of all that noise, the soul grows silent, not because it's gone, but because we've forgotten how to listen. You can't hear your soul when you're constantly listening to the world. You can't feel peace if your mind is crowded with everyone's opinions. And you can't access clarity when you're addicted to the distraction of validation. Silence is not emptiness, it is space. And that space is where the soul speaks. We live in a culture that fears silence. We fill every gap with sound, every moment with motion, every pause with productivity. But stillness is sacred. It is in stillness that we remember. It is in stillness that we reconnect. And when we do, something profound happens. We begin to hear ourselves again. Not the self that's shaped by comparison, but the self that's connected to something eternal. The soul doesn't speak in doubt or fear. It doesn't beg for approval. It doesn't ask for permission. It speaks in peace. It speaks in truth. It speaks in the deep, wordless knowing that you are enough, that you are here for a reason, and that your worth is not determined by how others measure you. But if you don't make space to listen, the voice of your soul is drowned out by the endless hum of what everyone else wants from you. There is a part of you that is untouched by the world, untouched by criticism, untouched by fame, untouched by failure, untouched by praise. That part of you doesn't change with the seasons of life. It doesn't rise and fall with opinions. It is the observer behind the experience, the awareness behind the thought. That is your soul, and it is always trying to guide you, not toward what's popular, but toward what's true. To hear it, you must begin the journey inward, not as an escape, but as a return to authenticity, a return to simplicity, a return to that place within you that doesn't need to perform, doesn't need to impress, and doesn't need to pretend. The soul has no use for masks. It only thrives in honesty. And when you give it room to speak, you will find answers where there used to be confusion. You will find direction where there used to be doubt. Sometimes people ask, how do I know if it's my soul speaking or just another thought in my mind? The answer is always in the feeling. The soul never speaks in anxiety. It doesn't pressure you or rush you. It never sounds like panic. The soul whispers in peace, even when the message is difficult. It brings clarity, even when it's guiding you toward the unknown. The soul always points you toward freedom, not fear. But the key is silence. Not the kind of silence that comes from isolating yourself from life, but the kind that arises when you choose to be fully present in life. When you put the phone down, when you step away from the noise, when you walk alone without distraction, when you walk alone without distraction, when you sit with your breath, when you listen not to the world, but to what's stirring underneath your thoughts. There is so much wisdom inside you, but you must slow down to receive it. You must become available to it, because while the world is busy trying to tell you who to be, your soul is gently reminding you of who you already are. And the more time you spend in that place of quiet awareness, the less you'll need the approval of others. You'll stop asking if you're good enough, and you'll start knowing that you are. You'll stop chasing happiness in places that never held it. You'll stop editing your truth to be more acceptable. And you'll start living in alignment with what feels right, even if it doesn't look perfect from the outside. Because when you hear your soul, you no longer need the world to confirm what you already know. You've spent enough time at war with yourself, enough time molding, performing, proving, and waiting for someone else to tell you you're enough. But the truth is, you were always enough, not because the world said so, but because you are. You were born whole, you were born free. And the only thing that ever clouded that truth was the noise of other people's expectations. You were never meant to fit in, because you were never meant to be a copy. You are an original, a divine expression of something far greater than approval or applause. The opinions of others were never meant to be the compass for your life. Their voices are loud, yes, but they are not wise for you. The only wisdom that belongs to you, the only voice that truly knows your path, is the one that speaks from within. And that voice becomes clearer the moment you decide to let go. Let go of the story that says you must earn your worth. Let go of the chains of judgment. Let go of the belief that you need to become smaller to be accepted. Because the moment you release the need to be understood by everyone, you begin to understand yourself. Your peace does not come from being admired. Your strength does not come from being agreed with. Your purpose is not found in the praise of others. It is found in the stillness, in the silence, in the space where your soul speaks. And so the journey is not about fighting the world. It is about coming home, back to your truth, back to your wholeness, back to the deep and sacred knowing that your life is not a performance, it's a prayer. And when you walk that path, your path fully, freely, unapologetically, the right people, the right energy, the right direction will always meet you there. Because when you stop caring what people think, you finally make room for what you know. And what you know is enough.